What's up, friends? Today we are here with the Rev Phantom X and a big old box from China. Inside this box is a kit that can turn almost any angled tipped board into a go-kart, and that is pretty cool. Let's jump right into it. So this kit comes straight from Rev Skateboard, who made the Phantom X and who also sort of owns and runs the newbie ESK8 store. Inside this kit you have a custom designed go-kart conversion for angled skate decks. I don't think they're going to release one for flat decks because I don't think that it would do very well for the geometry of the steering and whatnot, but for right now you can pretty much convert any angled tip deck to a go-kart using this kit. You have a front steering rack in there onto which you attach your stock tires, and then you have some blocks that sort of zero out your rear truck so it can't steer. So you have sort of a fixed truck in the rear and then a steering rack in the front. It also comes with a seat, a steering column, and a steering wheel that you can strap your remote onto and then use to propel the board. Super cool idea, pretty good execution, and not too expensive as far as price goes. It's $350 for the limited time launch offer, and then the site says it'll increase to $450 once the first 30 sets are gone. So if you want to get one, look down in the description for the link to it. I don't know if my discount code will work for it or not, but you can check it out anyway and try. Yeah, so we're gonna assemble this kit today. Should be fairly simple. Your mileage may vary on how easily you can lock your rear truck. Channel trucks, of course, are going to be different than the Rev trucks, and it really just sort of depends on how you built your board. But in any case, let's get right into it. First things first, let's get all these parts out and take some B-roll. I have taken this stuff out, so it is packaged better than this when you get it, just so you know. Here's the main steering column piece. Pretty solid piece of metal, a couple of fasteners bolting it all together. Here is the steering rack. Another couple solid pieces of metal with some welded axles. Cool stuff. Lots of bubble wrap. Some seat brackets. Some more steering linkages and the steering column itself. I guess the other one you could call the steering column mount. This is the actual steering linkage. Here you've got the wheel, the steering wheel. Take that out later. And then underneath it all, we've got the seat. This is definitely an important part. I'm curious to see what holes this mounts to. For reference, this is a pre-production board, so I'm hoping that I have all the holes drilled that I need. If not, it's gonna make this a lot harder, but hopefully we do. And then there's one more box in here and some stickers. This box has all the screws you need in it. All right, so inside of the little hardware box, you actually have very well labeled bags. So you should have everything you need in here, including an adjustable wrench and a big Allen key. Most of the assembly of this is actually going to take place without the skateboard, so I put the Phantom X down for now, and we're going to start assembling the front steering rack. Rev did actually make a video about this on their Instagram, so if you want to, you can go check out that guide. I am going to be following it to make sure I do everything correctly, but hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to see it done with an explanation on someone else's board. So first things first, we need to do the steering rack. First thing it says to do is set the linkage to 370 millimeters. So I need to pull out my ruler. So 370 millimeters is 14.56 inches, so we'll call it 14.5. So that's obviously going to be the longer one. So we'll go ahead and measure this out and extend these threaded rod ends out evenly so that it gets to 14.5 inches. Alright, so it says 370 between the eyelets. That's about there. So we're going to go ahead and tighten down the jam nuts. You do want to make sure these are at the same height. I think it's not a bad idea to put some Loctite on here as well. So put a dab of that on there before we tighten this down. I don't think this has to be perfect, but if you know what like tire adjustment is, this length is going to sort of determine your toe on your front rack. So if you don't have this adjusted to the right width, you may end up wearing out one side of your tire faster than the other, if that makes sense. Alright, next up, you're going to get your steering linkage bag, and here there are 3 screws. You're going to want to use the shortest one to attach the linkage to the sort of steering column base. This linkage is going to go from that base over to the right hand side. He didn't say in his video how far you're going to fasten this to, so I'm just gonna have to guess and see if I can make it straight. Might be a little bit hard to see on camera, but once I adjust it to length, I'll show you guys. Alright, so here's the right side steering linkage. I actually took quite a while to get this to a satisfactory spot. It looks like about 3 threads, and 2 threads is right for my setup. Basically, you want to have the center piece, the base of the steering column, perfectly straight this way. You can see it down there. You want this centered, and then you also want this to be straight as well. So connecting those two with the screws temporarily was how I got there. So now that I have that length set, we're going to take the short screw, washer on top, through one end of the linkage, washer on bottom, put some Loctite on and that's going to go down here into the stable position on that steering column base. You can see the text on there. It goes nimble, balanced, and stable. We're going to go stable for starters. Put that in there. This is a threaded hole. So you're going to set it in and screw the screw into it. Should be pretty easy. If you feel resistance, just undo it and put it back in. We're going to tighten these all down at the end. I'm just going to loosely set that in there, and we can move on to the next step. Alright, we're going to take the long link next, take the other short screw, washer under the head, long linkage, another washer through the furthest out hole, and then you're going to have your nylock nut on top. And we'll just finger tighten this for now. Next, you're going to take your long linkage, come over to your right side, put the long screw through the bottom linkage, stick it through the right wheel mount, and then stick it through the top linkage, and finally put the other 9-lock nut on top of that. Then you're going to go ahead and tighten each of these, and then you'll tighten the middle as well. Next up, we're going to prepare the steering bracket. So we've got our steering linkage here. I guess you could call it your steering wheel column, something like that. You're going to take out your 2 quick release latches. You're going to slip your bushings off of the latch and stick them into the holes on the rod, and this will go in between 2 halves of the steering wheel bracket. And you're going to take this quick release latch, shove it through the slot. Might be a little bit challenging. All the way through, and you can thread your quick release nut back onto the other side. Obviously you need to repeat that for the other one. I actually put this back one on upside down. You should have the round part facing up. Rev has designed this so you can sort of release the steering column, push it down inside to make it more compact, presumably, or you can let it rest in the upright position, the most upright position, like this. Tighten down the quick releases with them open, of course. Now you have a steering column. Next up, you're going to be attaching your steering column to the top of your linkage connection. So you're going to need a different Allen key than is provided. There's a small set screw on here that you need to loosen. Looks like it's probably a smallish one. Seems like 5/64 fits pretty well. I'm not sure if that's correct. It's probably a metric one, but I have an English one right here, so I'm just going to use that. Press it all the way down, and they said in their video to make sure it is as centered as possible. In my opinion, it doesn't need to be perfectly centered because you're going to be adjusting the steering wheel anyway, and it can kind of only go in one spot. So as long as your keyway is aligned properly, you should be okay. After you get it placed on, you're going to tighten the screw down here, which is definitely going to be metric. I think it's probably an M4. Yep. You're going to tighten that down. I'll give it a nice grip on the vertical column. And then you're going to tighten your set screw down just to nice and tight. Nothing too much. Next, you're going to attach your steering wheel. Pretty simple. For this, you do want to make sure your steering rack is approximately centered. Again, the steering wheel can only be put in so many orientations. So I think it would be pretty obvious if you were off by an entire degree set, but you want it up and down, straight forwards. Inside your steering wheel hardware bag, you're going to have a number of screws, 6 to be exact. These are just going to go through here. You can see the 6 screws here. You're going to put the nuts on the back. Once you have all screws tight, you can check your centering by just looking at the steering rack, at which point, if you do need to adjust it, you can adjust the lengths of these links to make sure that they're centered and working properly. At this point, you're now ready to bring the board back, whatever board you're going to be installing it on. First thing you're going to need to do on the board is take off the front truck. So however you do that, go ahead and do it. Now the front truck is off, we can start installing the steering rack. Now, this may be a touch finicky, but what you're going to have to do is insert your screws through the holes straight into the base plate. And it should just be a through fit, and then you have to stick the nuts on the back. Maybe a little bit harder to find them than the preset setup, but after you work at it for a little bit, you should be able to get them on there. Oh, this is gonna be terrible. Alright, so all I've done is attach the front truck bolts, and basically I guess the trick is sort of to turn the steering all the way to one side or the other so you can reach the back bolts. The front bolts, you just have to like sort of use needle nose pliers to hold them in place while you screw the screws in. In any case, I got all 4 in, so that's done. Now we need to attach the actual steering bracket to the deck, and pretty cool, we have a set of binding holes to attach to in here. It should be pretty simple. Screw them down on there. In the deck up here, you have a number of holes. These are for bindings, and they're pairs of holes here and here, and then all the ones back here are covered by grip tape, so we'll have to peel back the grip tape to get to those, and then you can see 2 over here as well. So we're going to use the 2 inside on all 4 corners. However, since I think my deck shape is slightly different than the production deck, we are probably only going to be able to use 4 due to the curvature, because if I try to do all 8, it pushes this up too far and it makes the steering column sort of bottom out. So I think I'm going to move it back to just the rear 2 on the forward side, and then I think we can do all 4 on the back. And replace with the screw just so I can visualize it. And I think you're definitely going to want some Loctite on these as well to make sure the hole's nice and sealed. And we'll do the rear 2 back here. Now that all the holes are revealed, go ahead and set this in place, see how it looks. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to use both rear holes either because it pushes this up too high. Just try and loosely put these in. All 4 of those went in okay. I probably could go with all 4 on the front if I really tried, but I think this is going to be pretty tough to get the screws to reach. I did actually end up going back in here and putting these front screws in after I tightened down the back ones and the first front ones. It was pretty obvious that it was still able to be installed, so I just went ahead and put them on anyway for extra safety. I highly doubt that this much force will be going through the steering column, but can't hurt to be safe. Now you got the front on, you're going to have to play a similar game in the back to put on these seat brackets. So these are also going to line up with those binding holes, and then bolts will go through the seat onto these brackets. I just need to figure out which way they align. Alright, for me it's looking like it's going to be this and then also this one in the back. So it's 2 per side, and those are going to use the countersunk bolts and attach through this hole and then this hole in the back. Should be easy. These are going to be 4mm hex, and don't forget to put Loctite on them. I would also recommend not tightening it down all the way until you are partially screwed in on both. Maybe I was mistaken. These holes don't seem to line up quite right. Alright, I figured it out. So there's 4 in the back. It's the inner forward one. And there's 4 in the front, and it's the inner forward one. So inner forward one, inner forward one, and then it's the one on the inside and on the inside for the brackets. I'm not sure what this X means, but that pattern doesn't seem to fit on mine. Maybe it's pre-production and regular production, not sure. Alright, so we got these on. It was a little bit difficult, but not too bad. Next, gotta put the seat on. This is pretty simple. There's 4 holes that align here. And you're gonna do these 4 extra bolts, same size and shape as the ones from the steering column. Put a little bit of Loctite on them and screw them in. These don't have to be super tight because they're just on plastic, but I don't want them to vibrate out either. So that's why we're using a little bit of Loctite. You got the seat on, got to come back around to the front, grab our washers and nuts, and put the wheels back on. So for the front here, you're going to do 2 washers on the inside. 1, 2. And then 1 washer on the outside. Really? That is the last step for the go-kart assembly. And if you thought that this board couldn't get any heavier, well, it now is. Oh, sorry, that's not the last step. The last step is replacing the rear bushings, so let's do that now. In hindsight, this would have been much easier to do before putting all this stuff on here, but gotta replace these real bushings with steel ones, so let's do that now. Get this other bushing out. Oh, okay. Just comes out. Stick the steel one in. And this feels so wrong. I don't know if I should leave the washer on here or not. Probably should. Well, that's nice and tight, so now the rear should be completely locked in place. Oh my goodness, it's heavy. Whew. There's your go-kart. This thing looks absolutely sick. Only thing really left to do is putting the remote into the putting the remote into the steering wheel, which should be pretty simple. A couple screws and this little carbon fiber bracket that should hold it on. Here's the remote. Pretty much just goes right in there. I'm going to put this silicone sock on it because I have one, and I think it'll be more comfortable to hold. So do that real quick. Oh, maybe I didn't even need to take this out all the way. It doesn't look like the remote is locked in here. It's just sort of loosely held. Press it all the way up and all the way in. The carbon fiber does flex a little bit, so you can kind of get it in there tight. There's your throttle. This will be interesting. I'm curious how this is going to feel to hold and throttle up. Should be pretty easy, I think, but definitely unique. Well, there you have it. There is your completed go-kart. I have to say, I love how it looks. The steering wheel looks really cool. Steering rack looks cool. It's all slick. There's a lot of steering response. Feels really smooth. So it'll be really cool to see how this thing rides. And now that you don't have any skate trucks, you can't get speed wobbles. I think it can still be unstable though, because it's kind of a skinny vehicle, but I think it's gonna be super fun to ride. I'm really excited to test this thing out. So I don't think in this video you're gonna see any footage because I'm gonna edit this on my Thanksgiving break. But when I get back from break, I'm going to test this thing. And you guys will be seeing it as soon as I can possibly get it up, because this thing seems like it's gonna be an absolute blast. All right, so I started doing stuff and realized I should probably record this. I went for a super quick test ride, and I found out that the steering is not quite straight. And this is something that Rev told me specifically to check. And I thought I had checked it well enough when I was setting it up, but apparently it's not quite straight. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm going back and I'm going to adjust the length. If my camera would focus, I'm going to adjust the length of this linkage and make it a bit longer so that it centers the steering wheel. See if that works. Something else I realized while messing about down here is that these screws are extremely close to the steering attachment, so I'm gonna add that extra spacer, or the extra washer in here that was included in the box. We're in speed mode 2, so I'm not trying to die immediately riding this thing. And the steering is twitchy. Even in quote-unquote the stable setting, it's still very sensitive. Which, I mean, I'm not that surprised to be honest, but this definitely feels like it should be a two-hand activity. But I'm holding the camera in one hand for you guys right now. We're gonna get some good action camera footage of this for the proper first ride video, which I'm planning on making separate from whatever one this one goes in. So make sure you get subscribed for that. But for now, I'm just wheeling up to take some pictures of it.